Hey, welcome to my channel. I'm Dr. Sharice and I specialize in trauma. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about levels of trauma gained from my experience working with children to adults who've experienced a traumatic incident or series of incidents. If this content is something you enjoy or think would be helpful to somebody else, please consider giving it a like, leaving a comment, sharing it with someone else, because it really helps with the algorithm and I want to spread this message to as many people as possible. I have a disclaimer that these are not scientifically researched. These are just gained from my experience and observations working with lots and lots of different people. So when talking about levels of trauma, I want you to think about how impactful was it at the time that it occurred, and then what is the lasting effect. I'm going to have a part 2 to this that goes over, common problems that occur at that stage, and then the best treatment, in my opinion, for healing from that sort of trauma. I've come up with 5 levels, and the first one would be slight. So not technically trauma, right? This is not a clinical, diagnosis. I'm a psychologist, but I'm not your psychologist. I'm just thinking in terms of how traumatized a person feels, because trauma is based on perception. And if you're a highly sensitive person, your experience of this trauma is going to be different, right? So at level 1, I think everyone would benefit from therapy. So you had slights from your parents, you had problems at school. It wasn't anything enough for, the police to be called, or, any defects or any sort of thing like that to get involved. It was sort of standard, upbringing. But in everyone's childhood, there is something that we need to heal from, because we're humans and we're raised by humans. And so there's like this thing that happens. For some people, it's being ignored. For some people, it's, being the middle child and all the, interactional complexities that come with that. For others, it's not being believed when something happened. And it could be like someone accused you of lying and your parents don't believe you. And that, sticks in your mind and bothers you for future interactions that you have. It's not technically a trauma, but we're working through the list because we're actually going to get into traumatic experiences. I also want to highlight that these next ones I'm going to be talking about are not okay. They're not normal. They're things that happen, but they really shouldn't be happening. And if you've experienced something like this, you may want to seek treatment. So at my level 2, I have emotional/verbal abuse. And think of it more like sometimes a parent calls you a name, or sometimes you feel unsafe in your home. Not that anyone has actually harmed you in any way, but just that the energy in the space doesn't feel conducive to you being your whole self. And people, adults, your caregivers have said things in a way that make you feel diminished or unworthy of love. Level 3, I have physical or sexual abuse. Some people go through both by the same person, or a series of events. Most people who are abused physically or sexually are done so by a family member or a friend of the family, somebody who has access to the child, right? This is a thing that often happens in childhood. We're talking about trauma in childhood. Level 3 is more like one incident. It happened one time that the uncle sneaked into your room, or, started grooming you and had you touching him, or, a series. I'm not going to get too graphic, right? I've seen and heard all the things, but I'm not going through all of it here. But there was an incident of physical and or sexual abuse 1, 2, or 3 times, right? But once you told, it was over. Your caregivers had a reaction of rage, wanted, it to end, wanted the person to be punished. This is your experience of the trauma. You've still been attacked and physically abused or sexually abused, but the response to it has been supportive, such that it has an ending, right? This trauma has an ending, and then there's a period of time after where you are then focusing on healing. You may have gotten therapy as a child, or you may have, talked and processed it with your family members. Level 4 is more. And I don't play the oppression Olympics. I similarly don't play the trauma Olympics. I'm not necessarily saying that this is worse, because your perception of the problem is what's really important. But still, it's not normal. It's not okay. This should have never happened to you. You didn't deserve it happening to you. But in level 4, in the categories of people that I've seen, they have a long history of the trauma. So it's not just they were hit once by dad. It was hit repeatedly, unexpectedly, for no reason, for years, right? This has gone on for years. This is like from 9 to 15. This is what I experienced. You were being sexually abused, and it was happening for, from pre-adolescence to post-adolescence. There's a whole period in your life where you can remember this was a thing that was happening to you. That is abuse. And it's a level of trauma, I think, that creates such confusing understandings of interactions with people. And in my next video, I'll tell you about treatment that I think would be best for it. In that level 4, there's often in adulthood a repeat of the abuse, because a lot of people are trying to control the situation, feeling like they could have done something different. And so the abuse repeats in adulthood with another adult, usually often a romantic partner. And then level 5, I haven't actually worked with people, like I'm considering this like prisoners of war, or a prisoner in a home, like you weren't able to go to school, let's say early child, like from infancy to age 5, where you were lacking nutrition, you were neglected, you grew up in waste. Like these are significant traumas that then impact the way your brain functions, not just like psychologically, but like physically. They impact the way your brain sends messages, the way you perceive, other future occurrences. It's such a significant trauma that it's very rare. Like it's very rare to have a child for that many years go through a period of neglect, physical abuse, sexual abuse, right? It's just like adding on to other things. Similarly, it's very rare. Like how many prisoners of war do you know personally? We know of some people, but most people are not prisoners that are maltreated, psychologically abused, and, manipulated for an extensive period of time. If you identify with any of the levels of trauma in this video, then I encourage you to watch my next video where I talk about common problems at each of those levels and how much therapy I think you might need to treat it. Let me know what you think in the comments. Please like, subscribe, share this video with someone you think it may help, and thank you for watching.